There is a paradox in life, and it's a paradox between abuser and victim. Let's think of a person, for instance, as a triangle, an isosceles triangle, a regular triangle. Line A to B is the vertical line of the triangle on the left side. Line B to C is the vertical line of the isosceles on the right side. And A to C is the base of the triangle. Now, that triangle represents a person. So let's say that that person is married, and that it's a woman, and that her spouse is mentally, emotionally, verbally abusive to her in some way. And so his abuse comes in to her in the vertical line from A to B of the triangle. She is the legitimate victim of mistreatment. But on the line from B to C on the right side of the triangle of her being, she is unwittingly toxic to, say, some of her children. She's not aware that she's hurting them and abusing them. She's aware that her spouse is abusing her, but she doesn't think she's abusing her children. And her children can't tell her because they don't know, they're too little. So you have her conscious awareness of the abuse from her spouse and her unconscious toxicity toward other people. In this case, particular case, her children. How does that happen? On the one hand, from A to B, she is a victim. But from B to C, she is the abuser, unwitting abuser. Why does that happen? Because of her base. From A to C, at the base of the triangle, is her baggage, the way she was raised in her family, the culture of family at the time, the culture in which she was born of her particular country, the prevailing ideas in that particular place. In other words, she has a base which has created a toxicity of which she is unaware. And that is the paradox between abuse and abuser, because it's easy to identify a victim, but it's more difficult to identify the abuser aspect of a victim. Why? Well, in this particular case, the children are too small and don't understand that they are being mistreated. And if the children are older, or if we get away from the family example and just choose a social group example, from A to B, you have someone who can be rude and dismissive and socially inappropriate toward the victim, and that's legitimate victimhood. And yet that victim can be toxic to other people in the line from B to C without knowing it. Perhaps the victim is abusive in that she cannot see the goodness in others. She cannot see kindness. Everything is black to her. Everything is evil. She criticizes everyone who's close to her. And why is that? Again, because of the base of the triangle from A to C. The upbringing, the circumstances, the events before she was even old enough to understand what was going on, and then the promulgation of toxicity through reinforced trauma. So there's a paradox. We can see always the victim when we are the victim, but we cannot see our own toxicity, because that's why we're toxic, because we can't see it.